Good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to Bates Nursery Botanical Boot Camp. My name is Adam Chapman. I'm going to be talking to you today about soils and soil preparation for fall specifically, since that season is right around the corner here. So we carry a line of soils called EarthMix garden products, and they're some of the best garden soils you can get and amendments. So I'm going to go over, just briefly describe and kind of let you know what each one of these is that I have behind me here. So probably the best seller is going to be our garden soil, which is in the green bag here. It is a topsoil blend that is great for all garden applications. It is a great mix for container gardening, also raised bed gardening specifically, so 4x8 or whatever size raised bed you have. It is full of organic nutrients. We add all of these great amendments to topsoil to make it. I'll open it here so you can kind of see it. You can see how dark it is. It's got, as I said, topsoil, pine fines, mushroom compost, and our compost. It's called Supernatural, which I'll show you here in just a second. So this is ready to go. You can plant straight into this with anything. So probably the best, if you're just planting trees and shrubs, probably I think our best product is called Landscape. So this product is essentially the garden soil without the soil. So what we usually recommend is you mix this in, usually 2-part soil and 1 part this. You could do 1-to-1 as well if your soil is particularly bad. And this also is a very dark, nutrient-rich mixture you see here. So this is what I use at my house all the time when I'm planting trees and shrubs. You can also use it to, you could use it as a mulch, just to add nutrients to the soil in general. Also, I suppose you could use it as a on your lawn if you want to improve your lawn's soil. So what I've got next here is our 2 potting soils. That one's a bit heavier. So we have Organics I, which is our indoor potting soil. You can use it outside as well if you want to. It's just a lighter mixture, so you end up having to water more often with it outside. But it is a very nice light mix. It's got Peragra or worm castings, Coir, coconut coir, which is a much more sustainable material than peat moss. It's very similar to peat moss and what it's used for. This is it right here in the pink bag. It's also got vermiculite, perlite, and organic fertilizer in it. So great for indoor plants. I'll be using this here in just a little bit to kind of show you what we would use it for. This is the Organics Outdoor, and so what we do with this is it's mixed with the Organics I and the garden soil. So it's a heavier mix. It's great for outdoor containers. It also has Sustain in it, which is a granular kind of clay product here. This is great to break up dense clay soils, helps with soil drainage, and also helps to retain nutrients in these. It's got little microscopic pockets on it that will hold moisture and nutrients. So also can be used for vole prevention, or they don't like to dig through it. So if you put trenches of this around your beds, they'll hit it and then go away from it. So also great use for that. So we'll just kind of go, as I mentioned before, this is the Sustain, which is coconut coir, which has very similar applications as peat moss, but it's more sustainable than peat moss. Because peat moss takes hundreds or thousands of years to come back into the areas where they dig it up. This is highly renewable, because you're just taking most of the waste from coconuts and using it in a garden application. So the only thing to know is it has really no nutrient value to it. It doesn't have any. It's inert essentially, just like peat moss. So it's great as a way to lighten up soils. You can even use it in hydroponics on its own. You just have to add all the nutrients to it. Open this so you can kind of see it. It's kind of has a reddish brown color to it. Of course, this is fairly wet, but you can see the fine hairs from the coconut husks. So, great product. So the last few things we have here, this is Peragra, or worm castings. This is a super concentrated in micronutrients and other nutrients as well, macronutrients. It's just a really good addition to any soil. So we use this, I think just about everything up here has got this in it. So you can really see how dark that is. Now it is probably one of the more expensive soil amendments you'll find, but you'll find that you don't have to use quite as much of it, because it is so full of good stuff. So this is Magic. This is mushroom compost. And what they do is they use several different manures, cow manure, horse manure primarily, and they'll grow a crop of mushrooms on it, and then it's ready to go to use in gardens. So like I said earlier, we mix this in with the garden soil, and this is not as expensive as the worm castings, but it's still very, very nutrient rich and a great way to add organic matter to your soil. So however, probably the product that has the most nutrient quality to it is going to be our supernatural compost. So this is great. Really, you can use it for any application, but specifically for vegetable gardening, would be great to add to either in the ground or even in containers. You could use this to revitalize container soils that have been used for a bit and the nutrients have been depleted out of it. So this has all organic and highly nutritious additions to it, particularly the chicken litter in there adds a lot of nutrients. And lastly, product that's, if you're on a really tight budget, this is probably the least expensive soil amendment that we have. Also can be used as mulch. Is pine fines or shredded. It's pine bark that's shredded really, really fine. So you kind of see that right there. So this is something that we add to the. It's in the garden soil. It's in the landscape mix. It's great to add elements of drainage to your soil. So that's all of the soils and soil amendments that we have to offer. What I'm going to do now is show you a few examples of using the EarthMix products here. So I'm going to plant some lettuce first in the Organics Outdoor, which is a great product for outdoor container gardening for really any purpose, vegetable or annuals or shrubs or whatever you want to put in a pot. So, and one trick I can show you here to help with drainage in pots is to either use aluminum cans or plastic bottles in the bottom. That will create a nice space there that will keep the pots draining properly. So I'll pour some of this in there. Alright. There we go. Alright, so you want to get right up to maybe half inch or so below the lip there. So I've got some romaine lettuce that I'm going to put in there. I can put 3 or 4 is probably plenty for a pot this size. And then I've got some mixed greens here as well. Do not want to come out of there. Okay. This one looks a little better, I think. Alright. Now this should not need any fertilizer for a few weeks. Should have plenty of nutrients in it to get them started. But maybe a few weeks down the road you might want to put in some plant tone or garden tone just to give them a nice boost. I'm going to pot up a Draxina here, an indoor plant. So I'm going to be using the Organics I, which is the Organics Indoor. It's a lighter mixture, so it doesn't retain moisture as much, which you don't really want in an indoor plant because the temperature is usually, doesn't fluctuate. The soil tends to stay moist longer indoors. So I'm going to use that. And what I did in the bottom of the pot here was I put some soil conditioner in the bottom to help with drainage. So that's the pine fines here, the pea fines. So I've got some of that in the bottom there. Let's see if she'll push her out here. Yeah, this is not very root bound, so I shouldn't have to do much with it. Just stick her in there. You want to get the soil level about not quite to the top. So got the organics here, and if you have a breeze like this and a tall plant wants to fall over, that's all right. Okay. So you want to kind of, as you put the soil in, you want to kind of press down, making sure that you don't compact it too much, but you do want some compaction so that the plant will remain upright and root in as well. All right, looks pretty good. So that's the examples of the Proganics outdoor and indoor and container gardening. I mean, obviously you don't have to use Proganics indoor, just indoors, but I would not use Proganics outdoor, indoors. You don't want to use the outdoor inside because it's got real topsoil in it and is heavy. It's just a heavy soil and it stays wet for way longer. And a lot of these indoor plants are more sensitive to wet soil than soils that are on the drier side. So you don't want to have them just sitting in wet soil forever. So,
can you use Proganics I for snake plants?
Yes, snake plants you can definitely use them on snake plants. Pretty much any indoor plant's going to be good with Proganics I.
When should we start seeding our fall vegetables in containers?
If you're going to be seeding, I would probably do it as soon as possible because you've still got to get them out of their very small, seedling phase and get to September, October, where they can grow into mature plants. So if I was going to be seeding, I would do it very soon.
What kind of fertilizer or compost would you recommend for vegetable gardening?
Vegetable gardening, we recommend Garden Tone for the slow release, or Plant Tone, Tomato Tone. Also, those are all good. Any of the Spoma ones are good for slow release. And you can supplement with liquid fertilizer. If you want to do organic, you can do fish emulsion. If you don't care about that, you can do Miracle Grow. So,
do you recommend applying compost to a vegetable garden that's been producing all summer?
Yes. So we recommend when you're done with one season. So when the summer vegetables are done, we recommend putting supernatural compost on it and working it in so that you can revitalize the soil. So,
do you amend the soil when planting a tree or shrub?
Definitely. So when you are planting trees and shrubs, and fall is the best time to do that, in my opinion, because you're going into a dormant season rather than the actively growing hot season in the summer. So we recommend either the garden soil or the landscape amendment. So you could plant straight into the garden soil. With the landscape amendment, you mix that with your native soil and then backfill with that mixture, and then you've got all winter for it to root in. So
How does the landscape help?
Well, I mean, landscape is a great product because it's going to provide much needed nutrients and drainage, and just helps the roots to establish quicker, particularly within the hole that you're able to dig for the shrub or tree. And then the reason why I like to recommend mixing your native soil in there is because it will get the plant used to the soil that's there. When it gets to the edge of the hole you dug, it's going to have to start going into that soil. Yeah, watering. Yeah, so watering, like I said, we're going to have a boot camp session on watering here soon, but generally, in the fall, you're going to need to water at least twice a week, maybe even 3 times a week, depending on how hot it is. But it really is kind of predicated on the weather. So, when you first put them in, water them really good, and then you'll want to water regularly, which, like I said, usually means a couple times, maybe 3 times a week. So even in the wintertime, if it's dry, you'll need to water, once every 7 or 10 days if it hasn't rained. So, all right. Well, thanks for being in the Bates Nursery Boot Camp, and I look forward to seeing you at the nursery.